Welcome back. Chapter 19 on the Enchanted Ground. Let's read together. By this time they were on the enchanted ground where the air tends to make one drowsy. In places the road was overgrown with briars and thorns, and here and there was an alluring arbor in which if a person sat down he would go to sleep. And once asleep, according to some, he would never wake again in this world. Through this part of the forest they went single file. Mr. Greatheart led the way. Mr. Valiant for Truth brought up the rear. Mr. Weak, walking next to Mr. Greatheart, and Mr. Despondency went just in front of Mr. Valiant for Truth. Every man walked with his sword drawn. They had not gone far into the enchanted ground when a mist and a darkness enveloped them, so that they could not see one another. For some time they were able to keep in touch with each other only by voice. The frail men and women had the most difficulty, yet encouraging words from their guide kept them plodding along on the way. The way was also wearisome because of the softness of the earth, and there was not in all that region so much as one eating place. After hours of trudging in the darkness through bushes and weeds, grunting and puffing and sighing could be heard in their ranks. As one tumbled over a bush, another stuck fast in the mud, and some lost their shoes. One cried out,
"I am down!"
Another,
"Hey, where are we?"
A third plaintive voice said,
"I am caught on a bush and I can't get loose!"
Then they came to a beautiful green arbor, furnished with benches and a soft cot. Though this was an invitation to stop and rest, they walked faster, tired though they were, and not one of them even so much as suggested that they stop and rest for a moment. They had been faithfully warned of such places, and this inviting arbor had no effect on these heaven-bound pilgrims. They would not yield to temptations. I saw in my dream that they went on this treacherous region until they came to a place where there were many bypaths and ways leading off from the road, making it very difficult for one to know which way to go, especially in mist and darkness. And if one misses the road in this country, one is apt to be lost in a jungle and never find his way out. But Mr. Greatheart carried in his pocket at all times a map, showing the right road, the road leading to the celestial city, and all the roads leading away from it. He could also strike a light whenever he needed to, which enabled him to read his map in the deepest darkness. Yet if he had not been very careful, they would have taken the wrong road, and might have been swallowed up deep in mud. For just before them, at the end of the clearest, smoothest path, was a pit, no one knew how deep, filled with very soft mud. They came to another arbor, by the roadside where two men, heedless and self-confident, lay fast asleep. These two men, being weary with their journey, had sat down in this comfortable arbor to rest for a moment and went to sleep. The pilgrims stopped and discussed what they should do, whether to try to wake them or go on and leave them in their plight. They decided to try and wash them and make them sure that they themselves did not sit down or even wish that they might have been permitted to accept the momentary comforts of the arbor. They went and spoke to the men, but there was no response. Then the guide shook them and called loudly for them to wake up. One of them groaned and said,
"I will pay you when I get my money."
The other said,
"I will fight as long as I can hold my sword in my hand."
At that the young people laughed.
"What is the meaning of all this?"
asked Christiana. Greatheart.
"They talk in their sleep. If you call them, strike them, beat them, or whatever you do, they answer in this way. Like the drunkard in the Proverbs who mumbled, 'They have beaten me, and I felt not. When shall I awake? I will seek it yet again.' You know, when men talk in their sleep, there is an incoherency in their speech. They will say anything. Their words are not governed either by faith or reason. These two men must have been double-minded, as James says, or they never would have considered sitting down here. This is the way heedless ones usually turn out when they go on a pilgrimage. This enchanted ground is one of the last places that the enemy of pilgrims has. As you see, it is placed almost at the end of the way, and this gives the enemy more advantage because pilgrims are naturally more weary near the end of their journey. Therefore, the enchanted ground is placed near the land of Beulah, and near the end of the race. So let all pilgrims take heed, lest it happen to them, as it has happened to these, who, as you see, have fallen asleep, and no one can wake them."
Then the pilgrims wished for light on the way. So Mr. Greatheart lit his lantern, and they went the rest of the way through the enchanted forest, following the light though the darkness was very dense. Now the travelers were exceedingly weary, and they cried to him who cares for pilgrims to make their going more comfortable. Soon a wind arose that drove the fog away, now that they could see each other better and more easily keep in the road. When they were almost the edge of the enchanted ground, they heard a solemn voice up ahead, as of one who was much concerned. A little further on, they saw a man upon his knees, with his hands lifted towards heaven, pleading earnestly with the one above. They drew near, but could not understand what he was saying. They walked softly to keep from disturbing him until he was through. When he concluded his prayer, he got up and started to run towards the celestial city. Mr. Greatheart called after him.
Wait, my friend, let us have company. If you are going to the great city.
The man stopped, and they came upon him. And as soon as Mr. Honesty saw him, he said,
I know this man. He comes from my part of the country.
Then tell us who he is, said Valiant.
This is Mr. Standfast, an old friend of mine and a true pilgrim.
Then Steadfast said,
Why, hello there, Father Honesty. Are you here?
Yes, said he. I am here as surely as you are there.
Well, I am certainly glad that I have found you on this road,
said Steadfast. And I am indeed glad to see you, and that I found you on your knees.
What? Did you see me on my knees?
Yes, I did, he answered, and it made my heart glad.
But what did you think?
Asked Steadfast. Think? What should I think? I thought, here is an honest, sincere Christian on his way to glory, and we should have him in our company.
Well, then you thought right. How blessed am I. But if I am not what I should be, I alone must answer for that.
That is true, but your fearing for yourself confirms my belief that you are right within, and the Prince of Pilgrims is pleased with your spirit, for he says, Happy is the man who feareth always. Valiant.
Well, brother, tell us what caused you to be upon your knees. Were you praying for deliverance or for some special blessing?
Steadfast. Let me tell you what happened to me. As you know, this is the enchanted ground. Well, as I was coming along, I thought of what a dangerous place this is, that many have come even this far in pilgrimage, yet have stopped and ultimately been destroyed. I thought also of how persons die here. They do not die of wounds or any violent disease. The death to which they succumb is not painful. They go away and sleep, and they begin that last, lonely journey with pleasure and desire.
Did you see the two men asleep in the arbor?
Interrupted Mr. Honesty. Steadfast. Yes, it's too bad. They were too bold or had too much self-confidence. I did not try to wake them because I knew it was no use. Their sleep is spiritual and final. But let me go on with my story. As I was walking along, thinking of this mysterious sleep and how easily men are overcome by it, there appeared one in very attractive dress who came and spoke to me and offered me three things: her body, her purse, and her bed. Now the truth is, I was both tired and sleepy, and I am also as poor as a church mouse. But I repulsed her. She smiled and paid no attention to my rebuffs. Then I began to be angry. But that mattered not at all with her. She said that if I would yield to her, she would make me both rich and happy, and I would be very famous. For, she said,
I am the mistress of the world, and men are made famous and happy by me.
I asked her what her name was, and she told me that it was Madame Bubble. This caused me to leave her. Still, she followed me with very strong enticements. Then I went to my knees and prayed to the judge of all the earth to rid me of her presence and her ungodly enticements. Then this woman went away. She must have heard you approaching, and when you heard me, I was thanking God for my great deliverance. Honesty.
Without doubt, her designs were evil. She intended to ruin either your pilgrimage or your life. But wait a minute. Since you have spoken of her traits, it seems to me that I have seen her, or I have read some story of her. Madame Bubble? Is she tall, attractive woman with a somewhat swarthy complexion?
Yes. Well, it was growing dark when she came up, but that's the way she appeared to me.
Does she have a mellow voice, and does she smile triumphantly at the end of every sentence?
You are right. That describes her exactly.
Does she not carry a large purse at her side, and are not her hands often in it, fingering her money?
Right you are. If she were standing before you right now, you could not have given a better description of her.
Then he who drew her picture was a good artist.
Greatheart. This woman is a servant of Satan. It is by virtue of her witchcraft that this region is enchanted. Whoever lays his head in her lap or upon her shoulder lays it on the block over which the fatal axe hangs. and whoever admires her beauty on her ways is accounted the enemy of God. She it is who maintains and supports the enemies of pilgrims in splendor. Yes, she is the one who has bought off many a person from a pilgrim's life. She is exceedingly shrewd, hypnotic person. She and her daughters are always at the heels of some influential pilgrim, commending or preferring the excellencies of this present world. She is a bold and brazen mistress, laughing poor Christians to shame while highly complimenting the rich. If she knows of one who is cunning to make money, she speaks well of him from house to house. She loves banqueting and feasting. She's put out the word in many places that she is a goddess, and a lot of people worship her. She has her places of graft and open gambling, and she boasts that no one person can match her profits and gains. She promises to enrich the children's children if they will but love and serve her. She is very liberal with her money when she sees that there is a chance to begain her liberality. She loves to be sought after, spoken well of, and to lie in the bosom of men. She never tires of lauding her goods. She promises crowns and empires to those who will follow her advice. She has brought many under her control, and 10,000 more to hell.
Oh,
said Mr. Steadfast.
what a blessing that I resisted her and was delivered from her power. For where would she have led me?
Where indeed, none but God knows, but we know that those who follow her counsel fall into temptation and a snare, into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. It was she who sent Absalom against his father, and Jeroboam against his king. It was she who led Judas to sell his Lord, and who persuaded Demas to forsake a godly life. And she prevails on millions to reject the only Savior. She brings division between rulers and subjects, between parents and children, between neighbors and husbands and wives, between a person and his better self, between the flesh and spirit. Therefore, my Mr. Standfast, you have done well. Live up to your name, and when you have done all you can and stand against evil, then stand and watch your enemies go. The victory is yours. Then the pilgrims were happy, yet cautious, but at length they all joined in and sang, By peril the pilgrim is often surrounded. His enemies want him to fall. By strongest temptations and sins he is hounded. He surely can't overcome them all. But God will deliver the man who is earnest, beseeches his help from his knees. He'll turn back the tempter, encourage the pilgrims, and answer his desperate pleas. And that concludes chapter 19. We'll be back shortly with chapter 20, and we'll see you soon.